Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Geopolitics East and West, in which myself, Adil Raja, and my esteemed colleague, T.A. Mullis, a British journalist, joins me. And we discussed, I've already told you, geopolitics, East and West. And there have been many important developments. Theo was in the field for a week, so he couldn't join us last week. But, what's happening right now is very critically important for both East and West, in which the Munich Security Council is going on. And of course, not only US relationship with its allies in Europe are a key concern, but there have been massive developments in Ukraine and in the Ukraine war. And then Starlink has stopped providing service to Russia, how it's impacting the Ukraine war theater. Well, Theo is going to give us an update. And then there is the massive debate about the Board of Peace by President Trump, which is being mocked as Board of Peace. Yeah. So we are going to talk about that in detail as well. But before we start, we should welcome Theo back. And Theo, I hope your visit to the field was fine. What are the updates from Ukraine? Would you please update about the Ukraine war and what is going on with the Starlink issue in Russia, and why is it important to the Ukraine war?
So, yeah, really key moment. On the 6th of this month, after conversations with the Ukrainians, Elon Musk agreed to alter the way Starlink works. Now, Starlink, for those who don't know, it's probably one of Mr. Musk's, I'm not a huge fan of the guy, but credit where credit's due, one of his best products. It's a satellite internet system. You buy a small dish, it looks kind of like a white table, you connect it and you have Wi-Fi. And it is vital for reaching internet services in Ukraine. Any military position, any outpost, and even a lot of private homes will have Starlink systems. And it's used extensively on the front line to assist in communications. If you have Starlink, then you have internet. Then you can access various government services. You can even access things like Signal, Telegram, WhatsApp, Discord, whatever you need to access. So it's really key for communications between soldiers on the ground. And the Russians were using it as well. And there had even been reports of them strapping it to the top of Geran drones to assist in guidance and that sort of thing. So when Musk shut down Starlink for Ukraine and Russia, except Starlink systems which are approved by the Ukrainian government. So there's a system now, you take the unique ID of your Starlink system, you give it to the government, they send that to Elon Musk, and then it's open for services. Now the Russian ones, which they got through various back channels and third parties, etc., don't have access to any of this. And it has caused an immediate, literally like flicking a switch, turning off Russian communications between soldiers, between frontline soldiers sitting in the trenches and drone pilots, between frontline soldiers and artillery units, between different divisions, regiments, armor, aircraft, everything. They are finding it much harder to communicate. There's some posts on Russian Telegram, which I'll come to, because Telegram, there's also been a development within Russia. Telegram, for those that don't know, it's a secure messaging app, encrypted, etc., and widely used, again, in Ukraine, and again, very much in Russia. And we see a lot of what we call mil bloggers, who are Russian military, quote-unquote, experts, and they talk a lot about what's happening in the war. And to be honest, they give you some of the most candid assessments from the Russian side as to how they see things. And they have been complaining significantly about this. I mean, one which I sent to you saying, this is a quote from a chap called Ivan Tenkov. And he says, quote, "The front is absolutely in tatters. Starlinks are dead. And now they're jamming Telegram too. Fight how? With pigeons?" So not only has Starlink gone down for the Russians, but in their infinite wisdom, the Russian government has also decided to block Telegram and incidentally also block YouTube. Now, Telegram, they're trying to replace with their own service called Max, M-A-X, which is a Russian government service which they will have access to. They'll be able to monitor. They'll be able to see who's saying what. I think they're trying to copy the Chinese with WeChat, except unlike the Chinese, they're not very competent. So to be able to post things on Max, you need certain levels of authorization, and soldiers, units, etc., are struggling to get this. Now, what do you're a military man, Adil.
Yeah.
What would you do if you knew the enemy had a sudden breakdown in communications?
Well, as far as this is altogether a different frontier, a new war which is being fought right now in Ukraine, and the entire world, the military from all across the world is studying the Ukraine theater, the Russian theater, in which the drone technology, for instance, has come forth as a very cheap and primary method of making your enemy bleed in the war of attrition, as they say. And Ukraine and Russia, at the end of the day, is a war of attrition. You make your enemy bleed through 1,000 cuts, and that is what is going on. So in this particular theater, since it is very vast, the usual communication channels, like using a UHF radio sets by Russians, I mean, they are the traditional methods, but because of the vastness of the war theater, it is not possible. It might not be possible. And then jamming the old technologies is very much a possibility there.
This is a very heavy e-war environment, this war. Both the Russians and the Ukrainians are jamming nearly every frequency.
So you have to bank on non-traditional methods of communication. That is where internet plays the crucial role, because all these apps plays a crucial role. And if you do not have access to internet, it means they're handicapped. And Russians seemingly are handicapped at this particular time. And Starlink has got a major role to play there. Yeah, you're right. So what's actually happening on the war front here?
So now this is the area around Zaporizhia. We're seeing Ukrainian counterattacks. See, the narrative of the past really 2 years has been steady, slow, very slow. Maximum around the area of Pokrovsk, the real axis of the Russian advance, about 70 meters a day. Now, since February 6th, we've had reports from both Russian Telegram and Ukrainians, although nothing from the Ukrainian government themselves, and of course nothing from the Russians, that the Ukrainians have achieved an approximately 16-kilometer advance in the area of Zaporizhia. And there have been advances around the area of Kharkiv, the northernmost city, that's very close to the Russian border, and 20 kilometers with recon groups, perhaps even further than that. So the Ukrainians are capitalizing on the Russians' inability to communicate the way they were, frankly, used to. As I said earlier, troops defending, sitting in trenches, have found themselves unable to call or message a drone unit with coordinates saying, there are Ukrainian units here, can you please send some FPVs? They're finding that much harder, and they're having to go even to using runners, which is, of course, very risky because the Ukrainians are not having any of these issues. Now, of course, the Russians do maintain an advantage in manpower and a material advantage in things like artillery tubes, etc. But that is difficult to bring to bear now. So what the Ukrainians are able to do is be a lot more agile, is react a lot faster to changing situations. And that appears in these early days, it's only been 5 days since Starlink turned off, to be working very much in their favor. Now, do I think we're going to see sweeping advances like we saw in early 23 and late 22? No, I don't think we're going to see that. That phase of this war is done. Neither side have the capacity in terms of materiel or manpower to pull that off. But I think we are going to see some movements on the front lines. And I think we're going to see some of the Russian gains over the course of 2025 begin to get rolled back in areas of the front.
Very interesting. Theo, before we move on to the board or board of peace, whatever that might be, but once we've just discussed in detail how the US partnership in Europe and is important, what is the importance or strategic importance of US involvement in the Ukraine war for Europeans? I mean, Ukraine is a European frontier, the front line right now, right? The European FDLs is Ukraine effectively. And at the same time, we're witnessing the Munich Security Conference where evidently Pakistani delegation is also there, but they're just there for a speech or something. But the recent Munich Security Conference in which you've got leaders from all around the world gathered to discuss the global conflict and alliances. The main takeaways right now, in short, is that the Munich summit highlights the growing difference between the United States and Europe on security and democratic norms. Since you are running Democrats versus Democrats, right? So this is something really interesting. And but how do you think that this the growing difference between the United States and the European Union? I know we've already discussed it, and you said that it's going to help Europe to stand upon its own 2 feet, right? But do you think it's going to take some time for the kid to walk, for the daddy to move away?
Yeah. So Europe really stands at one of those moments in history where you have 2 paths. I don't know if anyone's ever seen those memes where you have a castle with lightning on the other side and sunlit uplands on the other. That is the choice Europe faces. And it's going to be very difficult. And there are forces in Europe which want to be self-interested, which are concerned primarily with pork barrel politics, where you get a factory in your country, etc., rather than the security of the whole and the prosperity of the whole. Europe can be a really significant player if European nations are willing to put a bit more sovereignty aside and are willing to make sacrifices for the benefit of the whole, for the greater good of Europe. And at the moment, of the democratic ideals, which I hold quite dearly, ideals which are very much under attack in the United States. We're seeing, and I saw a very shocking video recently of an ICE agent pepper spraying the inside of a family car full of US citizens, just as he happened to drive by, a car with a 1-year-old child in the back. The fact that this agent, this servant of the people, the servant of the government, this more servant of the government these days, federal officer who is should be under all the rules that I was under when I was a police officer in London, felt that that was a justifiable thing that he could do, that he could get away with that, is deeply, deeply worrying. And I'm very worried for democracy in the United States, but just decency in the United States. I think, and I used to live in the United States. I have a love for that country, despite all of its many flaws. And I am disappointed, frankly, in the American people, and certainly in this government. But this is the time when you need to make some sacrifices. You need to go out. If any Americans are watching this, go out, go. Practice corporeal politics, protest, put yourself there, meet new people, learn from them. Speak to people in other countries and learn from them. Speak to people who have fought against authoritarianism, because that is what is coming. And it happens so fast. I mean, think 10 years ago, would we be worried about the state of basic freedoms in the United States? I don't think, if I had said that there is a man who is going to come to government, is going to be the president 10, 15 years ago, maybe not 10 years ago, because that's that was just before Trump was elected, who is linked to one of the most evil and notorious men in modern history, a man who carried out extreme abuses, linked to, mentioned, I've seen reports a million times in these files that have been released. I'm talking, of course, about Jeffrey Epstein, a man who is objectively narcissistic, unpleasant, rude, vile, has no respect for his political opponents, or let alone the people. I would have said you're insane. I miss sometimes, just to give myself a little bit of nostalgia, I look at the debates between people like Obama and McCain. I look at George Bush and Al Gore, and I see the respect between these two men. They were opponents, of course, but they respected one another. And they respected the idea of this system, that you can participate politically freely, you can speak freely. And that has gone. And I find it deeply saddening. And I speak to my American friends, and they don't really know what to do, some of them. They feel quite lost.
I do understand where you're coming from, but you see, Theo, President Trump has got a very different style of leadership, maybe, and that is very direct. It's a mix, a contradictory mix, or like a Yankee Southern mix, maybe, and that is what is actually driving. And his can-do attitude and his way too frank mannerism. Well, it is actually bothering a lot of people and breaking a lot of traditional. I won't say breaking the alliances, but it is disturbing a lot of set patterns in global geopolitics. That is there. All right. And we see the same thing in the Board of Peace. And most of the people are already bored of the Board of Peace. But he's trying to do something which everybody's tried, but they have not succeeded. And once we see the partnership, what he's trying to build, these are mostly monarchs and dictators who are joining his Board of Peace. So I don't know how he would be able to, only one out of two things can happen. Either be very successful because these people do not come from democracies and they don't really care about what people think. They just want to go and make, please the US president. But in return, they want to be bankrolled, whereas President Trump doesn't want to bankroll these countries.
No.
He wants them to bankroll his projects like any real estate project, and he is from the outlook, the Gaza Peace Board or the redevelopment model looks like a real estate project. Obviously, that's how it is being marketed. But who's going to invest there in a volatile region other than few monarchies or few countries, dictatorships? And that too, do they have the capacity to raise that kind of funds? Firstly. Secondly, do you think that the conflict zone can be turned into a tourist haven? And do you really think that he's trying to create a plastic city like Dubai and Gaza? Would it really work with the history of resilience and the people over there, and the very, very disturbed history, and as well as the history of militancy and insurgency in that particular area? Do you think people would really go for tourism over there after whatsoever they're trying to build? Would they be able to build what they're trying to build? What do you think about this Board of Peace? Are you bored as well?
If I were to be a cynic, I would say it's a grift.
Mm-hmm.
A way to funnel monies into a bank account that can be used post-presidency. If I was to give it some grace, perhaps, I think that might be the wrong word. I think it's a possibility to within 50 years, but I think that the cost to do that, to turn Gaza into a plastic city, I think that's something he would like to do, absolutely. He's a real estate guy. He sees a strip of land next to the ocean, somewhere warm, and he wants to build a hotel. I think he's happy to build it on bones. And I think this board of peace, I don't think will result in much peace.
Well, here are the facts. The Pakistani security, the Pakistani military was tasked to become the primary motivational force representing the Muslim countries, and a Muslim military to be deployed in Gaza to disarm Hamas, effectively to fight Hamas, would have been something which will be politically a very savvy move. That you see, this is not the Israelis or the Americans fighting the Palestinian or Hamas. It is the Muslim themselves who are disarming them. So that will give them a huge political advantage. But the problem is that the people in Pakistan, particularly the Pakistani military itself, has got a very negative pulse on this deployment. And that is forcing the Pakistani military leadership, particularly the dictator, the de facto, now the de jure dictator, Asim Munir, to take a U-turn, and he's trying to find excuses, and because of which he's, as per reportedly and allegedly, he's trying to create an internal security situation with India and Afghanistan in Pakistan, so that he can present an excuse to President Trump that, listen, I cannot send troops to Gaza because we've got a security situation going on in our own country. So yeah, that is there because it only gives you the intensity or the underlying currents of this what President Trump might be trying to oversimplify or might be presenting as a very mega development opportunity. But the historical baggage of this entire theater we're talking about, it's so huge, so big that I don't think it's going to be an easy task, and that is why no serious country, particularly from Europe or UK, from NATO's joining the Board of Peace, obviously, or any serious country with serious money is physically joining in this Board of Peace. So I think it's a non-starter. But do you think it's going to work? Or not? Yes or no? No.
Yes or no? No. I agree with you. I think it's a non-starter. I think it rather, Pakistan pulling back from its military obligations, the wrong word, does show that to a certain extent, even dictatorships have to care a bit about what the people think. And I mean, what do the people of Pakistan gain from Pakistani boys going off to fight Hamas? I can't think of much.
Well, they're cash-strapped, actually, and they're desperate to find goodwill.
That money's not going to go to the people. That money's going to go into the bank accounts of the generals to buy another house in Chelsea.
That's true. That's true. That's true. That is why we are opposing this entire move. There's no other reason, because it is only strengthening dictators, not democrats. Not
exactly. The people of Pakistan won't see a penny.
That's true.
Of that.
Thank you so very much.
And the boys will come home.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. The boys won't come home, and it will create a security situation. It is a religiously sentimental issue as well. So yeah, that's there. You're right. Anyway, Theo, thank you so very much for this.
Thank you very much, Adil.
We'll keep preparing, ladies and gentlemen. Every Wednesday, you'll find Geopolitics East and West. Subscribe to our channels. You're watching it on both of our channels, Dictators We Democrats and A Soldier Speaks English and A Soldier Speaks Reloaded. You're most welcome to subscribe, and so that you are able to watch us doing this show. And there'll be many other topics which will be coming up, which will be as contentious as the topics we've discussed today. Thank you, too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care.